Does it really take 10,000 hours to become an expert or a master performer in music, or any other field for that matter? Well, it's a popular idea, but it turns out that it is pretty much completely false. So today we're going to bust the myth and look at what actually it really does take for you to become an expert or even just really good at music. So let's get into it. Hey friends, Morley-Fletcher here, and welcome back to the channel. And I think this is good news. The fact that you don't necessarily need 10,000 hours of practice has got to be motivating for us. You can get really good at things with considerably less practice. The flip side, though, of course, is that it does have to be the right sort of practice. And we'll look at what that means and how you can do that in a second. But first, let's just see where this myth came from. And this idea of the 10,000 hour rule really first came to light in the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And he looked at a number of different things, but one of them was a study by Professor Anders Ericsson on violin students. And it came out that the best students, on average, had all practiced 10,000 hours. Now, there's a lot more nuance to this. But he took that headline figure, it's not that simple, but he took that headline figure and started from there. And then he looked at, well, what about the Beatles? When they went and they were playing before they were famous in Hamburg, he looked, oh, okay, maybe they did about 10,000 hours of performing there, mastering their craft. And he looked at Bill Gates. Programming. He reckoned Bill Gates had done about 10,000 hours worth of programming before he founded Microsoft. So he started putting together this figure of 10,000 hours, which is really just a few random examples and a lot more other stuff behind it, and coined the term 10,000 hour rule. And of course, it's nice and catchy. And so that's what got it to catch on. But what's the reality? Well, let's go back to that study on the violin students, because Professor Anders Ericsson said it was really a misrepresentation of his research. And what was going on here is, first of all, that 10,000 hour figure is just an average. Some of those violinists in the top performance group had practiced more than that, and some had practiced considerably less. So it wasn't like all of them had done that. And of course, again, that was more practice than the violinists who weren't as promising had done. But again, that's an average for them. Some of those ones who were less promising had done loads of practice too. So there's more to it than just the number of hours. And then there's other things as well. This is just one area, very specific thing on violin students. What about other instruments? What about, these are classical musicians, what about other genres? What about completely different areas altogether? And again, this was at a very specific stage in their life. This was at, they were all about 20 years old. How much would they have done at 16 or at 30 or things like that? So there's a whole lot more going on here that means just taking that to give you an idea that 10,000 hours is what's needed is just jumping to way too many conclusions. So now we've got to ask ourselves, well, what does make the difference to becoming an expert, to achieving mastery, if it's not 10,000 hours? And it turns out that the secret, the thing that you absolutely must do, is to click the like button below this video. No, of course, I'm only joking, but I would really appreciate it if you did like this video, if you're finding it useful. Okay, so the thing that really did distinguish the best violinists from this study than the others, and that has been gone on to show that it makes a huge difference in all sorts of other areas as well, is the type of practice they did. And this is deliberate practice. So yes, doing more practice when it's the right sort of practice does make a difference. You're not going to expect to get great at something without doing any practice at all. But it's deliberate practice that really is the key. And I'm not going to go into all the details of that here, but you're really talking about having very specific goals, not just kind of practicing in general, but having really specific things that you know exactly what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it. You're talking about pushing yourself to be a little bit uncomfortable, things that are perhaps not so fun or so easy to do. This sort of deliberate practice that's really aimed at improvement is what's going to help. And having the right guidance on that, having a teacher or a master guiding your practice and giving you feedback as well, that's all going to help with the deliberate practice sort of thing. So that's really the key here. It's not about 10,000 hours. It's much more about the quality of your practice than the quantity if you want to become an absolute master musician, or even just if you want to get as good as you can given the time you're going to spend on it. So really helpful for everyone to pay attention to this. And if you want to go really deep into what gives you the highest quality practice, I've got a course called Practice Multiplier, which shows you a whole load of important things to get the most out of your practice. And I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check that out. But if you just want a good overview of what it takes to have really effective practice sessions, then check out my video on the 4 pillars of practice next. And if you'd like the special practice and performance tips that I only share with subscribers, then head on over to playinthezone.com and sign up for the emails. They're free. I've been Morley-Fletcher. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.